to assess the quality about how the problem that you are trying to solve has a real world impact. So please try to think from that perspective. And we are also looking about how you have integrated various technologies to come up with a solution. So, yeah. And then last but not the least, so will have office hours throughout the duration of this contest. This is the first one, which is about kickoff and general questions about the contest, but we'll have future sessions. The next one is on September 11th, which will discuss more about the ideation process and the brainstorming process about the projects that you can build. But we have 6 sessions in total. We'll have experts from NVIDIA and LlamaIndex in all the sessions. So feel free to join this and get your questions answered right away by joining this office hours. So all. This is all about the contest. I think we can go to the Q&A session, and I think we have another expert joining us as well. Let me try.
Yes, Jay, Rohan has also joined.
Okay. I think he is still in the audience. Let me try. Okay, he has joined.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Hey, hi everyone.
Hey, Rohan, welcome to the office hours, and thank you for giving us your time to help answer all the questions that our participants have. So, before we start answering questions, would you like to give your short intro about what you do at NVIDIA and what's your focus?
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can get my camera. Yeah, hey everyone. So, I'm a senior solutions architect. So, I work on a lot of generative AI applications with different enterprise companies. So, recently it's been focused on knowledge graphs, on agents, on multimodal RAG, things like that. And yeah, and I'm just like happy to help answer questions in the chat or if anyone has any.
Okay, cool. I'll start asking question. So I do see Rohan has already answered a few of the questions. Uh, so I'll skip those. Okay, so one question from Meow is what's the recommended lab environment to test the app? So what would you recommend, Rohan?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's open in the sense that like you can pretty much run all of these applications on a Mac if you like, or like any,
Mm-hmm.
light desktop or workstation. Because most of the time, like if you're using LLMs that are hosted, like the NVIDIA NIM APIs, then you don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily need to have a very powerful machine. But at the same time, like if you want to try out something like one of our smaller language models, you can like run that on an RTX GPU. So if you have one
Mm-hmm.
of those, then you can start experimenting with that as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and yeah, I think it's a. Thanks for asking that question, and thanks Rohan for answering. And it's also important that whatever you are running or testing your application on, uh, please submit the information about the test hardware and software that you were using during the test of this application in the application form that you'll submit towards the end of the contest so that we know how to replicate this code on our side. So, yeah. Another question is how will we take advantage of NIM microservices? Do we get an API key and endpoint, or how does this work? Farshad, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I think we already answered this, right? They can go to build.nvidia.com to
Okay.
sign up and get API keys.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for answering that. In addition to that, so as a free user, you get 1,000 API endpoints or free inferences. If you sign up with your enterprise account, then or your work account, then you get additional 4,000 credits, which is in total 5,000. So you have enough number of API calls available at your disposal for most of the popular models out there today. So there's ton of inference calls that you have. So feel free to use them. So the another question from Death Coder is Llama index always required in addition to one of the NVIDIA libraries mentioned? So the answer is yes. So this contest is in collaboration with LlamaIndex. So you are required to use LlamaIndex as part of the project submission. There's ton of good integrations available with all the uh, uh, model providers or model hubs out there like Olama and then Hugging Face. So feel free to use them with LlamaIndex in addition to NVIDIA technologies. So another question is, does source code need to be published under what license? So answer is yes. The source code needs to be published on GitHub, and you are required to send the GitHub code link in the submission form submission. And we have seen that there are some participants who are not comfortable releasing the code as they are working towards it, uh, which is okay and which is fine. So, but you make sure that you are making the repo public while you are submitting your code and project. So that we can see it. If we are not able to see the submission on GitHub, then we might not able to uh, uh, grade you or consider you for the competition or the contest. So make sure everything is public while you are submitting the application. Another question uh, is, do you encourage local LLM solution that take advantage of NVIDIA GPUs? I have a 3090 and Llama 3.1 runs split on this. It is completely powerful enough to power a RAG application. Rohan, do you want to answer that?
Um, yeah, sure.
The-
I
yeah.
think that would be a very good option. So if you do have an NVIDIA GPU, there are some new approaches which let you go and do fine tuning, do customization, different sorts of things that can run entirely locally on your own device. So some of
Mhm.
that would be beneficial, but if you want, you can always optionally use the endpoints which we're providing free credits for, and then you can potentially move some of those applications later, either if you run out of credits or you want to try and
Mhm.
work on some small models which can
Right.
run entirely like without an internet connection, you can do that.
Right, right. Okay, yeah. And even I think using a local GPU, that might be a great option to learn how quantization works, how LLM optimization work, because running FP16 model, that wouldn't have a good inference speed. So in the process, you are trying to run the LLM locally on an NVIDIA GeForce GPU, then you might have to quantize it. And in the process, you'll learn all the great stuff that is out there in the community, what people are using to quantize LLMs. So NVIDIA also has a inference SDK. It's called TensorRT LLM, where you can optimize and quantize your large language models. If you don't want to use a TensorRT LLM, there's also local NIMs. So you can go to build.nvidia.com and try finding a text on top of models which says run anywhere. So with that, you can just basically pull the Docker container which has all the model files optimized, which is already optimized and quantized for the hardware that you are using. So great opportunity to learn on device LLM. Okay, so Meow has a question about, can you provide some training modules? I'm assuming this is about how to learn AI stuff. So as I said before, like if you go to the Llama Index developer contest page, we have ton of technical resources. So feel free to go through them and use them. I also see I use Mac only. or I don't have a GPU available. So, what are my options? Do you want to answer that, Farshad?
And what's the question again, Jay? Sorry, I was searching for something.
Yeah, so what if I use a Mac or no, I don't have a GPU? In that case, how can I get GPU acceleration or how can I include in my app?
Um, that's a good question. I think I'm not sure. Do we have? Can we give them access to Deep Learning Institute credits?
Yeah. So I think the best option would be to use cloud hosted NIM APIs, where they can get access to GPU accelerated models easily, and we have integration with LlamaIndex, so they can use large language models as well as embedding models from NVIDIA. Uh, that are hosted on NIM. So I think that would be the best option. The second option could be like they could use Google Colab, which gives free GPUs. In that case, it's T4. Uh, it's small, but I think it's good enough for fine tuning small language models like 5 3.5 or just 2 billion parameter models. So I think that is how I would approach. Okay, so another question is as AI model continue to grow in complexity, what role do you think NVIDIA's hardware advancements will play in democratizing access to powerful LLMs? Could we see a future where even small scale startups can build agentic RAG systems with NVIDIA's latest tech? Rohan, do you want to answer
Yeah,
that question?
yeah, sure. I was actually gonna reply to that, but yeah, I can
Okay.
just say what like I wanted to write. So it makes a lot of sense that Nvidia is also moving towards this, and in general, the whole industry. Like if you look at what models were popular 2 years ago when like GPT 3.5 was just launching, Chat GPT itself. Like those models
Mhm,
were a lot larger than what we have today that can reach very similar performance. So it's kind of
mhm,
going to continue both growing in complexity at the frontier, but then at the same time, that same level of performance or quality of a model is going to be distilled down to a much smaller level. So a lot of different things are going on in the space, and then at the same time, obviously hardware advancements also improving where you can go and incorporate this within the actual chip, so then you can optimize and quantize, and like multiple things are happening. So I'd say it's definitely possible, like even with the current generation of tech, if we were able to run this on a mobile system or like a laptop or something like that, like it's definitely doable that even small scale you can go and take existing models from larger companies and then use it for agentic RAG.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And I think we are also seeing applications that are running locally using small models as well. So that's also an interesting feature where you don't have to rely on internet to get to chat to an AI chatbot. You can just have it on your local device, which could be a laptop and in some cases phone as well. So yeah. Another question I have is: does the project need to be completely new, or can I update a project that I've already been working on to include the mentioned libraries? Is that acceptable? Prashad, do you want to take a stab at that?
What's the question again? Sorry, I was searching for something.
Okay, no worries. So does the project need to be completely new, or can I update a project I've already been working on to include mentioned libraries? Is that acceptable?
Yeah. As far as it has kind some innovations and using some tools from Llama Index and NVIDIA, that's acceptable.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you have, I think, participants have ton of time. I think it's almost over 2 months. So feel free to take as much as time you need to refine the project. And I would also recommend spending good time on creating the documentation, the presentation as well, so that it is easily communicated about what your goal is in solving the problem. So, yeah. So there's a question about, can you please post the link of Llama Index developer tools here? And I think Rohan has already uh, pasted a link to the NEEM integration for embedding models. There's also LLM as well. So I'll try to find that out and share here. Also, Rohan has shared a video about multimodal RAG that is using LlamaIndex. So feel free to use that as an inspiration, or just feel free to use any part of the code in your application as well. So, so the next question is, Rohan, would you want to take that? I'll ask. Uh,
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, so the question is, in context of LLMs, how important is to have real-time retrieval systems in place, and how does NVIDIA's NIM microservices architecture enable these kind of setups?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. In the sense, there are a few aspects to it. So, in terms of retrieval itself, it doesn't usually take as long because a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
systems are optimized to perform that retrieval. So, you're doing like vector search over a large index. You'd usually have a
Mm-hmm.
GPU accelerated vector DB in place. So, right now, like we are working with a number of popular like vector database providers to accelerate it on GPUs. So recently, like it's been with Milvus, we kind of encourage people to try out like the Milvus Vector DB because that has GPU
Mm-hmm.
acceleration. And in terms of actually ingesting data, I mentioned earlier in the chat that NVIDIA launched this thing called NV Ingest. So it's kind of an
Mm-hmm.
open source pipeline for streaming ingestion of PDF documents. And so that would be able to extract the same multimodal extraction of text, image, tables, and so on, and that would kind of enable you to just continuously keep updating your database. And NIM itself, like that is slightly different. Like if you wanted to run inference against something in real time, one of the best ways that most people are doing this is by streaming the response. And there's a lot of optimization under the hood of NIM. But finally, what you get is that you can stream in at very low latency all these individual responses, and you can operate all of these independent streams. So multiple people can be accessing an endpoint, and it can go and batch them and then respond to all of them in parallel. So that's kind of the advantages which it has right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And since you have been working with customers, like what is the biggest technical hurdle or challenge you have seen uh, that the customer
Yeah.
go through? And of course, like feel free to share only the things that you are allowed to share. But yeah. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the actually interestingly, the most difficult is to define a use case. So then that
mhm,
use case definition part becomes difficult because people have 1,000 things which they would want to do, but you have to
mhm,
prioritize what is actually important and then what provides business value to your company. So that is kind of difficult actually for most organizations. So then they want to define that and then they'd say, okay, these are the top three use cases or applications which can provide that value, and then they'll work towards that and then we work with them on it. So those are
mhm,
kind of things where we'll build out some high level reference or prototype application and then they'll start working towards productizing it. I'm also going to share like our GitHub page. So we have a
mhm,
generative AI examples GitHub, which is also where a few of the other Llama Index examples are hosted. But we have a number of community examples within that,
mhm,
within this repo. So I'm just posting that on the chat as well. It gives you a
mhm,
number of different reference examples to start from for various applications.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Rohan. The community examples or the GenAI examples repository, I feel like it has ton of good examples or use cases that our participants can use or just get inspired by. It includes knowledge graph, RAG, then multimodal, so great use cases. So another question, I think Farshad can answer this. Do we submit only one project for contest or multiple project?
One project.
Okay, yeah. So to revise the rules and eligibility, so you can only participate in this contest as an individual. Team submissions are not allowed, and yeah, just one project, and also look at the eligible list of countries that we have on the terms and condition page, so you don't miss out. So there's a question from Z2. If we have any questions during the development, what is the best way to reach out? Uh, so we will be constantly monitoring the Discord channel that you are on currently. So feel free to post questions there. And if we are not able to help you, in most cases, we'll just answer right then and there. But if you're still going through any of the issues, feel free to join these office hours, which are the schedule of these office hours is on the NVIDIA and LlamaIndex developer contest webpage. So the next one is on September 11th. So you will have enough support throughout the contest. So don't worry about that. Okay, so I think this would be a good question for Rohan. So the question is from Data Titan X. Could you share any specific techniques you have seen being used to optimize the balance between flexibility and performance in multimodal RAG application?
Yeah, that's a good question because there's been a lot of approaches to how people handle this, and some of them choose to go with proprietary APIs. So you could optionally just say, I'm going to send like my entire image or my entire PDF document to an abstracted API, which might be like Google's Gemini or Vertex API or OpenAI's GPT-4o API for vision or something like that. So then in that case, like everything is abstracted from you. It's a black box and
Mhm.
you wouldn't know what is going on behind the scenes. Whereas at the same time, you can always split up these and kind of define your own architecture. So use custom models throughout the stack. And that's kind of what Jay has also shown in his video. So multimodal video for LlamaIndex. It kind of lets you define individual models which are best at each of those tasks which you need to do. So that's kind of how people would split that up in terms of flexibility and performance. I think some of these proprietary ones are heavily optimized, but they may not be perfect
Mhm.
for your domain specific application. So, depending on what you need, you would want to choose what you want to do. So, that is that balance. And you'd have to define that architecture based on that.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, it's always tricky finding that balance, but you can figure that out based on your use case. Uh, is so the next question, I think Farshad can answer this. Have you seen any examples, particularly innovative or impactful use case using NVIDIA and LlamaIndex integration if customer has gone into a uh, production setting? So if there's any use case that you have seen.
Um, we have some, reference architectures that we have
Okay,
built
okay.
in Llama Index. Let me go and find them, and I can share them in the chat.
Sure, sure. Okay, sounds great. just looking over new questions that hasn't been answered yet. Rohan, I like the answer you gave about Nemo guardrails. So, can you share about what Nemo guardrail is and what would be the best use case of
Yeah,
guardrails
yeah,
in this
sure.
contest?
So guardrails you can use in a lot of different scenarios. Basically, what guardrails means is that you can have an input and output guardrail, right? So that means that you can
Mm-hmm.
prevent toxic, biased, harmful responses both at the time when the user actually asks the question. It may not
Mm-hmm.
just be toxic, biased, harmful. It may also be unrelated to your domain. So if you're building a
Mm-hmm.
healthcare chatbot, you don't necessarily want it to answer questions about cars or something. So then, like,
Correct.
you would
Yeah.
want to restrict the domain or limit that sort of um, applicability of that chatbot. So that's kind of what guardrails allows you to do, and it does this at both the input and the output. So input is when the user asks a question, but then the
Mm-hmm.
output is when you are retrieving information from so many sources, and then the LLM's generating a response. Sometimes maybe those sources were not relevant, and so the final generated response may not be useful to the actual question the user asked. Then that is kind of how you would want to define a guardrail to prevent it from responding or to change what it's saying, things like that. And if you have, so the answer which I said is that if you have multiple safety checks, you have one for bias, one for toxicity, one for harmfulness, one for self, fact checking. You'd
Mm-hmm.
ideally want to combine all of these into one or two, like a very limited set, because the more models you put in, the more the latency would be for the end user. So the goal
Correct.
would be to have a single model that returns scores over all of these. And one good example is Llama Guard, which is from Meta. So that gives you scores across all of these different aspects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. So the next question is if we want to use, for example, audio to face locally for this contest or other projects, is it mandatory to have an enterprise account? Rohan, do you want to answer that?
Okay, I'm not 100% sure about that. I'll need to check and get back.
Okay, okay. So from what I know, I think all the models available on build.nvidia.com, you can use those as part of the API credits that you get. So for any user who signs up for free, they get 1,000 API credits, which means 1,000 API calls. So you should be able to use audio to face as part of that NIM credits or the 1,000 free credits that you get. I think for now, audio to face NIM is only cloud hosted, but there would be a local NIM or self hosted NIM that might be available in future. And if it is, we'll share that in the chat. But for now, you can use audio to face on uh, using the cloud hosted NIM API. So the other question that I think Rohan has already answered is using a laptop with a GPU, the cloud with API, or example, HX, Xavier would all be eligible for running the software. And yeah, the answer is yes, as Rohan mentioned. Yeah, you can use NIM APIs, cloud-hosted NIM APIs, or just use local GPU compute for your inference needs. Both are eligible for the submission. Yeah, to remind everyone again, you can use a developer program account, which is free to sign up. As part of that, you get 1,000 free API calls. And if you have your work email address, then you get additional 4,000 more API calls for your inference needs. The other question that I have is how helpful would NVIDIA AI Workbench be in developing an app for this hackathon? Rohan or Farshad, does any one of you want to take this? Farshad, Rohan, do you want to answer that question?
Uh, what's the question again?
Yeah, so how helpful would NVIDIA AI Workbench be in developing an app for this hackathon?
Yeah, so AI Workbench is a product that provides, some pre-built kind of uh, projects that
Mm-hmm.
you use to configure your AI, project, and then it will configure it across, different workstations and GPUs automatically. And
Mm-hmm.
once you're done with your experimentation, it can,
Mm-hmm.
package it as a container that you can run it, anywhere you want. So if you go to the web page, the homepage of AI
Mm-hmm.
Workbench, it already has a project, like a pre-built project for a RAG that uses, one of those, AI endpoints on build.nvidia.com, or you
Mm-hmm.
can also use like a name within that project. And also, it provides some code to run an embedding model through your document to generate embedding vectors and store them in
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
US database. Okay, so that's the whole idea behind AI Workbench. So it helps you to quickly do experimentations locally on your own workbench or your laptop.
Okay, okay, great. Thanks for sharing that, Farshad. Also, in the chat, I do see a lot of question about how do I sign up for an account. So I'll share my screen and give you a quick demo about how you can sign up and use the NIM APIs. So if you go to build.nvidia.com, you will get through this page. So there are tons of popular models available as part of NIM. So let's take an example. So suppose if you want to use Llama 3.1 AP instruct model, so you have an area to chat or just check how the responses are. So it will give you the options. So you can use NIM APIs using two methods. So first one is using the cloud hosted API. So this model would be running on NVIDIA server. And to use the way to use that is just you can use this boilerplate code and get an API key. So when you click on the API key, you'll get a pop-up to sign up for the NVIDIA developer programs, and which says the same information that I just shared. So you'll get 1,000 API credits to use any cloud-hosted NIMs, or if you use a business email, you'll get 5,000 API credits to use any NIM. But if you have a local, so this was for in case if you don't have a GPU and you want to use cloud-hosted NIMs. But if you have a local GPU, you can basically go to the Docker tab of this model and just follow the instructions. So it will download the optimized container for your hardware, and you can perform the inferencing. So uh, yeah, uh, make sure if you want to use a local NIM, it should have a run anywhere tag on the model. So yeah. So we are almost at time. We'll try to answer the questions offline, whatever questions are in the chat. But this was really great. I would like to thank our experts for today's session, Farshad and Rohan, for their time in answering the questions for our participants. So thank you so much. And thank you to all the attendees for joining this first office hour session. We are really excited to have you on board for this contest, and we are really we will be excited to see what kind of novel real world application that you come up with. So before we wrap up, just as a reminder, the second office hour would be on September 11th, 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is same. So it's next week. So feel free to join, and looking forward to seeing all the cool projects that you built. Thank you, everyone, and bye for now.